once a child's nervous system becomes more regulated, what are the first changes parents usually notice in their behavior?
I think the number one thing people will say to me is they say, I just noticed my kid's more with it. That's literally the words that half of my people will say to me. And, what does that mean for a parent? Because I think what happens when you're in a stress state? When you're in a stress state, you're more rigid, you're not as flexible, and you might be cranky, you might not want to be touched, you might not want to be hugged, you might be overly clingy. There's a wide range of behaviors that happen, but certainly it's not what parents thought parenting was going to be, right? I mean, nobody, part of my work is to help you right out of the gate so that you come in with the right tools so you don't have to search. You can use what worked for some of the most challenging behaviors and start parenting with little babies, and make parenting a better experience for you and your kid and the generations that come beyond it. But, when, it is when people experience PEMF and what they're noticing afterwards is that they have a kid who's more responsive and connected. And when a kid is more regulated, if you're more responsive and connected, if you've been saying, no, I'm not going to do that, mom and dad, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not saying they are. Kids never do things on purpose. Even when you think they are, it's their nervous system acting on autopilot. It's the survival mechanism of the nervous system, right? So when they are regulated, they're just much more receptive to hugs and affection and can handle hard conversations about correction, right? Okay. All right, Joey, you just did this and I can see you tried, but it didn't work, and they're not so reactive. So you're able to move forward. I mean, I think for people that have multiple kids and they see that one kid is much more flexible and open, because what are we doing with our kids? These 18 years, how about beyond, teaching them to be independent individuals in many, many facets, right? Social, emotional, spiritual, academic. And our world overly focuses on academic, but we need to really include nervous system in there. So for sure, those are the pieces that we see.
I mean, doing these episodes on the PEMF podcast is so useful. Even for myself, I take a lot of things from these, and I'm resonating with a lot of this because, I'm a parent myself. I've got 2 young girls, a 7 and a 4-year-old. My 7-year-old is absolute dream. My 4-year-old, she's very much full of ADHD. So, we're seeing these changes, and a lot of the behavior like traits that you're talking about is everything we see in her as well. So she's only just started.
And when you say she's ADHD, right? What does that mean for you? Is it mean that she's has a hard time starting something, finishing? Is she curious? Right?
All of the above.
All the above.
So,
yeah.
All the above. Yeah. So that's the thing. She's not diagnosed with ADHD. But from being in the health industry, it's written all over her, and it oozes from her. She's very she will not sit still. She struggles to go to bed at night. She struggles with concentrating, with starting things, finishing things, and whereas my older daughter will sit there and do all sorts of different, she'll draw for hours.
Here's the thing. 50% of the people that came to me with ADHD diagnosis already didn't have ADHD.
Okay.
So is it that, and we don't want to deny that she has ADHD. There's nothing wrong with having ADHD, but regardless of diagnosis, we've got to regulate. And also too, the thing that I saw, because I spent 22 years doing neuropsychiatric testing and helping kids who had neurodivergence and issues and things that were interfering with learning. But on the flip side of that, I would help create these amazing programs for them. And I would get the schools to do what they were supposed to do. And sometimes it meant within the school, and sometimes it meant private schools. I even had families from the UK that we had to bring back to the United States because it's different educationally there. It's much improved. But the United States, in terms of getting services when you need a specialized plan, it's called special education, is light years ahead of particularly even some places in the UK. Ireland is like 1950s America in terms of like autism support. I'm saying this from having helped a few people, but kids learn differently, right? And we have kinesthetic learners. Your daughter's a kinesthetic learner. She learns through doing and movement. And so when we have a traditional program, she may be showing those behaviors because it's not her love language of learning. And so sometimes it means she's ADHD, but it might mean she has a gift, an area of giftedness that is just not being met. So you start to see behaviors. So, and it's not as simple as that. And not everybody has, this is part of why a lot of people homeschool their kids because, or find different educational settings. My own educational journey, my kids are neurodivergent. And so my older one was we did a mix of different schools, but he wound up being homeschooled and it was a great move for him. And then my younger one went to a Montessori school. He didn't want to be homeschooled. And that was fine. And he's in a small educational environment and he's really thriving. But if I didn't put him in a sensory environment, also too, I married into a dyslexic family. And if I didn't give, particularly my youngest, who was triple deficit, very severe level of dyslexia, and I knew right away, I gave him reading intervention right out of the gate. He never had those, he never experienced regular education. He only had what his brain needed. And so he's thriving, most importantly, in his self-concept. So what happens is when we try to push these kids into, these, he's a square peg and trying to go in a round hole, just destroys who they are in the inside. And, we need to provide a variety of ways to teach kids in different learning environments. And, I've had the privilege of helping all these kids over, 3 decades and even my own, and just to see how important it is. Because the most important thing, it's a regulated nervous system, but it's also believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you're just not going to get as far as you can go.
And do you think those children are easier to teach and learn, once they're in a regulated state, despite their environment?
Incomparable. It's night and day. When you talk about your daughter, right, your older daughter, it's because she's regulated. She might actually have the same skill set as your younger daughter, but your younger daughter's nervous system is more wired to be sensitive. So her cup fills up faster throughout the day. She doesn't know how to empty it. And so, it's not a matter, this is what I did for 30 years is I emptied people's stress cups. Then we came in and said, okay, how do they learn best? What do we need to have here? And, you already know you're a dad with young kids. You already know you have 2 totally different kids. And you're like, how did that happen? Like, I have a glass half empty kid and I have a glass half full, right? The way I approach them is completely different. Yet our core values, we call my husband Mr. Hodge. Like anytime, and I refer to him, it's always Mr. Hodge. Mr. Hodge and I have the same core values. We parent very similarly. We view things very much the same. It took some. We've always gotten along. I'm not going to lie, but we've been together over 30 years. And I know it's not normal for couples to always get along, but we pretty much do. But when you are talking about how to prepare kids for learning, if regulation isn't there, biology does not allow you to absorb. It's just that way. And I think all somebody has to do is step back and think about that in their own life, right? If you were, at university and, you were out partying the night before and you're super sleepy and whatever, you don't remember anything. And you might say, well, Roseann, that's because you're hungover. No, I'm saying like, even if you didn't drink, you're just not prepared for that learning where you had a good night of sleep. You saw your best friend, you gave a hug right before class, you got a dopamine hit and you go into class, you're just going to absorb a lot more. And so we have to start thinking about that because we're moving to an increasingly dysregulated society. All you have to do is watch the daily news and you feel sad about what's happening. I mean, in America, we have on average 1 shooting a day in America. And that is a very sad state of affairs. And it's about ignoring a lot of clues from dysregulated individuals, particularly when it happens with when it happens with kids that are shooters. You look back at their history, 100% of them have a history of X, Y, and Z issue that reflected a lot of dysregulation that everybody ignored.
Yeah, and on that point, as a nation, we've been trying to fix the wrong problem. We've been trying to fix the behaviour rather than what should we be fixing, the nervous system.
Definitely, 100%, and we're making it way too hard. I mean, whether you, for me, as somebody who's out here as a very seasoned mental health professional, and it doesn't matter whether you read my book or you listen to my podcast or come to read a blog. It doesn't matter. I'm really giving out very clear ways to regulate yourself. And most of the things I talk about, yes, I love PEMF. Yes, I sell a device. But really what I'm talking about is all things that are free that you can do. You just have to actually do them. I mean, you can't have one-offs, right? It's like the gym, right? You can't build your muscle by having one awesome day of working out, right? So I work out 7 days a week and I work out multiple times a day. And I do little micro workouts all day for multiple reasons, but mostly actually not to just build muscle, but actually to lower my cortisol level because your body knows no difference between good and bad stress. And I am a very highly excitable spaz. And I can get as excited about like a beautiful like piece of, I don't know, meat that we're cooking for dinner as I can from some guy cutting me off on the road, right? Like my nervous system gets jacked like that. So I know that I literally have a PEMF device in my pocket right now. Because the lights bother me. So, but I need my lights on because otherwise it doesn't look as good, right? But what am I doing to rebalance myself? I'm actually pulling stress out of my stress cup all day. Because at the end of the day, whether I had a bad day or bad stress or good stress, that stress will accumulate and then it's going to affect how I sleep. And then I move into a cycle of dysregulation, right? You don't sleep. Then the next day you're going to be pushing yourself. Then you're going to exhaust yourself. Your stress cup's going to go up. Then you're going to go into a cycle again of not sleeping or maybe oversleeping. And I share these things because this is the culture we're living in. And you have to go back and think, what am I doing to pull a little bit of stress out every day? And it's not that hard.